Hey there, my friends, and welcome into another episode of the Web Design MBA podcast. Thrilled to be with you today. Remember, this is the podcast where we actually help you learn the business side of web design, right? We talk about the business. If you want to learn how to design a great website, there are lots of courses you can take. There's lots of podcasts you can listen to. There's lots of YouTube videos you can watch. But if you want to learn how to make money and build a lifestyle of freedom that lets you do the things you want to do through web design, then you, my friend, are in the right place, because that is all we talk about here, and the different aspects of getting the business side of web design working correctly. And working for your business. One thing that I'd like to start doing, you let me know in the YouTube comments if you're watching there, you let me know if you'd like to see this, is I actually love taking questions. And answering questions is, like, just in general one of my favorite things to do. And so I may make a way where you can actually submit an audio question and into the podcast, and then I can put that out there, and then we can answer those sorts of questions. So if you think that would be cool, let me know, and I'll get to working on that. Should be able to make that happen pretty easily, actually. So would be excited to do that. If you have a question about the business side of web design, yeah, let's get that answered. All right, so in today's episode, what we want to cover is the subject of onboarding. Okay, so how to create an onboarding process that not only helps you to get projects started on time, but also is deeply impressive to your clients. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, to set up this conversation, there's something about marketing and psychology in general that you need to understand. So marketing is one part psychology and one part simple math. Okay, that's really all marketing is. It's psychology and math. And on the psychology side of marketing, one of the things that we have to deal with is the notion of status. Okay, so anytime a transaction occurs, anytime you buy something from a company, or a company buys something from you, or it's a service or a product, there's an immediate shift in the status that happens. And this is why, I mean, if you look at branded, store branded credit cards, if you look at rewards programs, there's all kinds of things that these companies do to help us feel better about the purchases that we're making, and to sort of mitigate that loss of status that happens in every transaction. Okay, and this is what leads to buyer's remorse. Okay, if you buy something from a company and they do not do a good job in those first few minutes, hours, days, and weeks to impress you, then you lose trust and credibility with them, because they've lost status, and that makes them feel bad. And you don't want customers to feel bad. You want to leave them feeling very, very impressed with you as a professional. Okay. And one of the best ways to do that is a solid onboarding process. There's almost nothing more powerful than that. So let me talk through a few of the reasons why. Aside from the overarching status consideration, is number one, that it really just frankly impresses clients. Clients find it very, very impressive if you actually know what you're doing. And the better you can make them feel about the process that you're getting ready to embark on with the website design, the better. Okay. And there's a couple tactics here too that I'm just going to briefly mention. One of them being an email, just a simple email, letting them know what the next steps are. Okay. And I used to call it a next steps email. I actually have it programmed into my my Rocket Typist or text expander, whatever you use. And you just fill in the name and the client, the project, and otherwise it's all there and ready to go. And that email sets expectations for what the client should expect in the early phases of the process. Okay. So that's something that I would recommend that you start to implement right away, is a way to set expectations for the process. And a second tip on this is to Make sure especially that any downtime in the initial phases of the project is covered. One thing I noticed in the process that we had developed over time, clients would start to get a little bit nervous in the first few weeks because they hadn't heard from us. Okay. And so there's two things that we did to solve this. Number one is I wanted to make sure that clients knew that after getting a project started, those first 2 to 3 weeks were a lot of just internal design and process and things that needed to happen, to look over their questionnaire, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and to get a sense for the project. How do you quantify that time as a web designer that you spend in the shower thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to try this button design, or I'm going to try this page arrangement, there's things that literally happen. Design does not just happen when you sit in front of a computer, right? It happens in the shower, or while you're driving, or while you're sitting at the dinner table. That's when it all happens. And so sometimes it can be really hard to quantify that. So we let them know that the first 2 to 3 weeks, there's typically a little bit less communication, but that after that point, once the homepage gets approved, then we really keep things moving after that, and that they can expect to hear from us no less than once a week. Okay. The other thing we implemented was a no update. So every single Friday during an active build, my project manager updates the client on what's going on, even if there has not been any movement, visible movement on the project. Even if it's just, hey, we're still working on it, just wanted to let you know. And that's it. You know what I mean? It can really be that simple, but a no update is another way to really create great expectations and to seriously impress clients. All right, moving on. The second thing is that it gives you a repeatable process. So when you are doing, this kind of work for people, especially if you're a solo shop, it can be very hard to prioritize process, right? It can be hard to prioritize systemization. But I'm going to encourage you to make this a huge priority in your business. A huge, huge priority. I started at least 6 months to a year before I hired a team member, creating process videos and writing process documents for the way that I wanted things to be done. And whether you're a solo shop or when you start to bring on a team, having a repeatable process, which goes back to just impressing clients, is really going to be something that makes you stand out, because you're going to become way more efficient at it. And it's going to look like you know your stuff, plain and simple. All right. Third thing is that, it does make life easier for your team. If you've already got a process established, when you start hiring team members, man, you can just plug them right into it. This is how you like things to be done. Make sure they know that. It makes life way easier. You can, I like to say, blame the system, blame the robots. So it's like, what's more annoying? Getting an email from a person nagging you about a lapsed payment or something, or just getting a reminder email from the system, right? I like to blame the robots, right? I'm not, it's psychologically stressful for me to reach out and say, hey, you owe me money. But if the robot does it, it's not a big deal. And typically things get paid and it all gets handled without any additional involvement from me. Same thing here with process. I like to say that I don't manage people. I think people are for relationships, right? Systems are for management. So I manage systems, and then to some degree, the system manages the people. You can always go back and point to the system. Hey, if we're failing in this area, it's not you. It's the fact that we're not abiding to the system. So let's get back to the system, and then everything will go through. And then it helps with scheduling your days. When you onboard well, and part of your onboarding process is actually to schedule out the project. You know what the deadlines are. Tuesday on the second week after a project starts, this has to be done. By Friday, this has to be done. Okay, by Wednesday, the fourth week, this has to be done. You can get that granular with your onboarding process and your project management setup, which I very much encourage you to do. So all these reasons and more are hopefully getting you excited about the prospect of building an onboarding system for your business, it is amazing how much easier and better and frankly more fun having a great onboarding process makes all the rest of the work on the project. Now that we have that covered, let's go into the basic elements of onboarding. And I'm excited about this. I'm going to give you literally everything that we do in our onboarding process. And then one thing that we don't do yet, but that a friend and colleague of mine does. And it's really working great for him. And I'd like to sort of share this idea with you. And I think you're going to like it. Okay. First things first, we start with the basics. Basic contact information. You need name, email, phone number, and address. Okay? Name, email, phone number, and address. In the early days, was not collecting the address from my clients, and I have purposed to start doing that and have started doing that because it will be very, very handy to have a physical mailing address for your clients for reasons that will become clear a little bit more here in just a minute. So you want name, email, phone number, and mailing address, basic contact information. A pro tip here is to just make sure that it actually goes into some sort of centralized database that is something that more than just you will have access to. Why is that? Well, if you're a solo shop, you need to have a hit by a bus backup plan, right? You need to have some way that people around you can get in touch with clients to let them know if something has happened to you or whatever. Okay. And then if you're not a solo shop and you're working with project managers and things like that, well, they're going to need this contact information as well. So I recommend that you grab or create, even if it's very simple, a spreadsheet or something, a client tracking database where you keep all the best and most relevant information for clients in that one central place. And this is something that in my business has even been lacking. It really has been until recently, and we fixed this problem. I'll give the hat tip to my friend Christian, who recommended a fantastic Airtable database, and it's a little course that comes with it too for like $200 from a guy named Noah Britton. I think that's how you say his name. And it's called Agency X-Ray. Just Google Agency X-Ray, and I'm sure you'll find it. But man, this sucker is awesome. So it really helps you to have a database of all your client information in one spot. Okay, so that's your first element of onboarding is basic contact information. All right, second one is your design and project questionnaire. So right after a project gets kicked off, I like to send a questionnaire. Now, some people send questionnaires before the project even gets kicked off and sometimes even pre-quote. I typically don't do that because most of my information just comes from the sales call. So I'll use the project questionnaire as a way of double checking everyone's understanding before we move forward. And I think that it helps big time so that not only does my team know what my client's expectations are, but I could come in right there in the process and say, hey, this is not something that we had talked about. This is out of scope. We're going to need to adjust scope if you want to include this, etc. So on your onboarding, you always want to have some kind of a questionnaire just to make sure that not only you're covering your butt, frankly, but that everyone is clear on all the expectations going into the project. Next is billing setup. You got to get paid. You got to get paid. Especially if you do what I teach, which is subscription-based web design. You want to make sure that you are receiving payment before you start the work. At least that's the way that I teach to do it. I know some people who don't quite do it that way. That's how we do it, and that's how we teach to do it, is to get your billing set up going first. You always take your first month's payment right away before you even start working. And if you have a setup fee, then you take the first month's payment and the setup fee right away before you ever start working. And this will guard against problems in the future. Trust me, been there. I have lived it. And I think you will be well served to do that. Billing setup at the very beginning as part of onboarding. Next is going to be your project management setup. You should be able to have basically like a templated project, again, that you can duplicate very easily and get to work on a new client's project without too much administrative overhead. In our Basecamp, we've already got a new client project for a standard sort of website set up and ready to go. the dates automatically adjust. I think we could even do it now. I don't think we have it this way, but I think we could do it where the actual assignments for different tasks in the project were already assigned to the appropriate people. Sometimes our projects change, so it doesn't really make sense for us to do that because we have different designers and developers that will work on different projects. But the dates are going to be the same, and they'll be relative to the start date. So the project has a start date, and then it's like, hey, so many weeks on this day from this date, the project is due. So all of that setup you want to have done in onboarding at the very beginning so that your team and the clients from the very beginning have their expectations dialed in. You know what's going on. They know what's going on. So if you just wing it every time, then again, you're not working to establish a repeatable process. So I think a onboarding process that does not include a structured project management setup is a failing onboarding process. Okay. You're not doing you or your clients a service by skipping out on that. So make sure you've got some kind of project management setup, even if it's basic, even if it's database driven or whatever. It doesn't have to be a fancy tool. It could be a free tool, but do something and put it together to make sure that you know what to expect and a rough timeline of when that project is going to get done. The client tracking database. I had this listed as a separate item, and but I'll hit on it just one more time here. Be sure that you have got some way of actually tracking everything as it relates to your agency. Again, I'll just give another plug to the agency X-Ray, and I'm not an affiliate or anything like that, but it's a fantastic product. It's got everything you could want and need in there. It's pretty easy to customize for your own needs as well. Man, you can track your recurring income. You can track interactions with your clients. You can do your whole lead pipeline tracking in there. So Agency X-Ray is a huge one that I think you should look into. But regardless, a client tracking database of some kind is something that you need. All right, now the final element that I'm going to mention here, this is optional, but highly recommended. In full disclosure, not something we're doing yet. Although I've read about it and wanted to do this for many years and just haven't implemented it. My friend Ezra has implemented this, and it's working wonders for him. It's called a WOW package. A WOW package, and really what this is it has it's lumpy mail, right? The mail that gets opened is always lumpy mail, and this is one reason why you're going to need a physical address so that you can actually send your WOW package. And I'm sure there's a few elements other than this, but by far the two most impressive elements of Ezra's package are some bags of beef jerky and a Yeti mug that is branded with the client's brand. That is huge. I mean, that is literally the coolest thing ever. So a new client starts working with him and they get beef jerky and a branded Yeti mug in the mail. That's very impressive. It shows that he cares. It shows that he has a process that he's dedicated to. And I mean, wouldn't you be pumped if you got that in the mail from somebody that you just started working with? I guarantee you would. And it's not corny either. It's high quality, high class, not corny. You're not sending candy bars, It's good stuff. Beef jerky and a Yeti mug. It's not even an off-brand mug, right? He could go to Walmart and buy the Ozark Trail brand. No, he's got the Yeti mug, right? That shows a commitment to quality and a dedication to them as a client, and really creates some goodwill with them. And frankly, that's a client that's going to refer. It's like, it's so funny. You would think just doing a great job on a website would cause a client to refer. But you'd be surprised how much more likely they will be to refer if you're sending them beef jerky and a Yeti mug. Okay. Because that's just one little thing that sets you apart and gets them excited about working with you and about telling their friends, because they know that their friends are going to have an awesome time and an awesome experience. And that's going to make them absolutely want to recommend them to you. Okay, so we've discussed why you should have an onboarding process. We've discussed the different elements of onboarding. Let's close out with just like where to start. What is the super practical few steps that you can take to start today getting this moving? Okay, now it does not get any more practical than this, so I hope you're paying attention. Okay, number one, even if you don't have all the elements, pick the few necessary ones, right? I think they're all, frankly, necessary, but at least start somewhere. Okay, and step one is going to be you're going to write it down. Okay, whatever your process is, write it down. Now, listen, don't make it so overwhelming that it's something that you won't do. If you write a 12-step onboarding process and you've never done this before, you're not going to do it. So, man, start small. Even I've only listed what, 6? I've listed 6 steps here. One of them was optional. Okay. So don't go crazy. You don't need 12 things. Okay. 3 to 5 things to start with, and then add more as it makes sense. Okay. So write it down is step 1. Step 2, test it out. Actually do it. Take your next 3 clients and go through that specific onboarding process. Okay. Then step 3, make changes. What did you learn? What didn't work? What little nuances and what little line items do you need to have? What little things do you need to add to that onboarding email or take out? Or what other questions have you gotten? Right? Make those changes. And then step 4, very simple, repeat until perfect. Right? Every 3 clients, man, go back in there, make some revisions to your onboarding process until you get it absolutely perfect. You feel like you're getting good results. It's leading to great client relationships. Clients are referring other clients. That's what you do. That's what you do. And I think you'll go a long way if you do that. Okay, so I hope this has been helpful for you, how to create an onboarding process to get projects started on time. Again, if you'd like to learn more about us and what we do, if you just go to the webdesignmba.com, just webdesignmba.com, you'll find out all the information that you need there, and I look forward to hopefully working with you in the future. God bless, and we'll see you on the next episode of the podcast.